Alright, so let's talk Pushblock. I've been hearing a lot of chatter about Pushblock recently. A lot of beginners saying that they find it difficult to get used to the mechanic, or they don't know how to play around it. What can you do to shut Pushblock off? It's basically just a lot of questions regarding the use and application for the mechanic, as well as counters to it. So I'm going to explain to the best of my ability some of the applications and some of the uses for the mechanic and some of the ways to counter it. Now I am on BlazBlue Cross-Tag Battle because if you're trying to get the hang of Pushblock, this is the game I recommend. This game has Pushblock so deeply integrated into the gameplay that it's very important to learn how to cover for Pushblock and learn how to use it effectively. So I'm gonna just straight go into it by first explaining what exactly pushblock is. So let me just play a recording from this Labrys. So this was her AAA string, and it's completely safe as you just saw there. My attack did not punish her, she was able to recover and block in time. However, this is what happens when I use Pushblock. As you can see, the last hit completely whiffed. I pushed her away and the last hit just did not hit me. This is Pushblock. It is a mechanic that lets you get the opponent off you while blocking. In this game specifically, it costs 1 bar a meter, but in every game for the most part, it's going to cost some form of a resource, often a bar a meter. So I think it's immediately apparent why this is a strong defensive mechanic, but what's probably less apparent is why this could be a strong offensive mechanic. So I'll just reset, and I'll have her do the exact same string again. Oh, I pressed the wrong button. Whoopsie! So as you can see there, she got punished for a move that's normally safe. And while trying to explain this concept to a beginner, they had this to say. If you get push blocked and then punished, then something is wrong with the game. Usually the defender is stuck in a block stun animation, an extended block stun animation for that matter, and it's sort of a reset to neutral. And yes, that is correct. However, in this case, I pushed her away right before she did a high commitment attack, and while the attack is safe on block, that does not reign true if the attack does not connect. If I make her whiff the final hit of her AAA string, then it's all fair game. I am going to recover faster even with the slightly extended push block animation. I'm going to recover quicker, and I'm going to be able to smack her for it. Alright, now I'm going to be trying to set up another application for the push block mechanic. Now, I'm not exactly a Rachel player, and I'm not 100% certain how to set this up, but I'm trying to show a concept here rather than, just telling you what's the tech. So, here we go. Damn. Okay, first try, not good. So... okay. This can work, this can work. So as you can see, I rejected the Labrys right into that George. There wasn't much she could do. She was stuck in an attacking animation. She got clean hit. Even if she didn't, she could only really block or get hit there. So either way, it's a favorable situation for the Rachel player. I know that the way I set it up is not exactly the most practical, but the idea is that if you do have certain stage hazards or something, you can always push the enemy into them. So another thing to keep in mind. But yeah, there's many more uses for push block. These are just a few examples. But now I'm sort of going to be going about how to deal with push block. So basically, the long story short, there's a couple of effective ways to dealing with it. Namely, if you've been paying attention, the goal of punishing with push block is to make them whiff an attack. So that is a very educated push block. They know that you're going to be committing to a certain greedy block string, and they're going to be trying to push you away at the time where they are most likely to punish a whiffed attack. If you stagger your pressure, then suddenly they can't really do that anymore. They're either going to be mashing push block and getting this, which is not good, because if you bait this, it's Punish City. So to sort of demonstrate it, I'm gonna go and set Labrys to do basically the first AAA example block string. So let's just AA and then block. Alright, so now we did AA and block, and we're going to save that and see what are our options. So she does this, we reject her, she doesn't go into the final one, she's completely safe. We are 1 bar of meter down because we tried pushing them away and it didn't work. We couldn't really get much out of it. So if we try to commit to an attack here, let me just reset. So let's say that I try to commit to an attack here. As you can see, I can't really do that. Depending on the character, if I was still on the Chie and I tried to sort of autopilot the standing B, then there's a big chance that I myself might get shimmied and I may be whiff punished because they baited this out. Keep in mind that you don't really have much time to react to the whiff punish there. You kind of have to anticipate a lot of these things. A lot of these things happen on a read, so keep that in mind when playing around it. And if you know that the enemy is push blocking a lot, try to not go for the final hit, which is going to expose you more than it needs to. Try to go for these few hits where, you know, if you get push blocked, it's okay. They're down a meter and you can just sort of go from there. Now, the next thing I want to do is let's have her do this as well. Now, this is a little bit sillier, but bear with me. So, I'm doing it a little bit late there, and I'm getting this DP. This is because, basically, the way you push block in this game is by holding, basically blocking and then going A plus D. But this is also the input for the universal DP. So, basically, if they read you doing it, and they try to do it as late as possible to basically sort of catch you as early into the... well, to basically push you away as late into their recovery frames as possible. What's going to happen is they're going to get this. This has a lot of recovery. It's very unsafe, and it puts you in a special counter hit state. So if they're trying to mash the push block, but nothing comes out, and you get this instead, you very well might kill their character, because they will be taking more damage and they won't be able to break the combo. That's just one of the drawbacks of having your universal DP blocked in this game. Now, this is very cross-tag specific, and it's not going to work the same way for other games. Some other games might have an input that basically makes the defender basically whiff a button rather than something as big as this. But there's ways around that as well. So if I can just sort of record Labrys, let's keep it on recording 1. So I'm gonna record her to do so AA and then delayed A. So what this is gonna do, whoops, AA delayed A. So what this is going to do is if I'm mashing here, I get counter hit. So you're kind of catching them pressing. So if they were like mashing something that forces you to press buttons, this might happen and they might catch you pressing a button. Now, this is staggering. I won't go into it too much, but it's basically purposely enabling gaps in your pressure to bait your opponent into doing something. All of these things combined can sort of go around push block to an extent. I think some of these options that I presented here aren't necessarily the best, but it's very important to know all of your options and then, respond in according to what your opponent is doing. Depending on what they might be going for, some of these options may work better than others depending on the matchup and whatever, so I highly, highly implore you, if you are getting hit by push block a lot and you don't know what to do, please go into the training mode. This is what I suggest you. Set your opponent to play the character that you normally play, and set them to record the normal pressure that you usually run. And then try to find gaps in your own pressure. So the reason why I prefer setting my opponent to be pretending to be me is because it's a lot easier for me to sort of just input my normal pressure into the recording as opposed to recording each an individual response on its own. So what I like to do is I record the dummy to play like I do, and then I sort of just go through the options, try to shut down my own pressure. This is really good for both learning the mirror match, and it's really good for finding gaps in your own pressure, and then finding solutions to fix those gaps, and then perhaps counter the thing that would counter your normal pressure. I know this sounds a bit crazy. I know that maybe the way I presented it isn't the best, but trust me guys, this is really going to provide a lot of insight into what exactly goes on and how to beat it. So I really hope that this helps somebody out there. I know I probably could have done a better job, but hopefully it's a decent enough primer that some people are going to come out of this with some knowledge they didn't have before. Anyways, I hope you guys are doing well. I hope that you're staying safe, and I also hope to see you again soon. Thank you for watching, and toodaloo. Okay, so I just want to get one thing out of the way real quick. So in the final part of the video, I sort of just go all over the place. It's horrible. None of this was scripted, so I'm sorry about that. Basically, I have one big problem with the way I explained staggering. Firstly, I want to make sure to tell everybody that basically the whole thing with delaying buttons, this mainly works not when they're trying to push block you, but okay, so let me just give you a scenario real quick. So you start noticing that they're trying to push block you, so you start basically cutting your pressure short and then going into block, so they start reflecting you and you start, keeping yourself safe. So after a while, they start noticing that you're cutting your pressure short, and they start mashing buttons to sort of take their turn away. So they no longer want to spend bar and not be able to punish you. They now want to take their turn because they are now expecting you to cut your pressure short. And this is where it's very, very helpful to actually delay buttons. Now, this is something that you can do in anime games and stuff, where you have these sort of big input windows to cancel at different times into a different attack, but it's something that other games may not necessarily allow for. So you're going to have to figure out how your game exactly functions when it comes to this. But that's when you start delaying your buttons. You start staggering in a way where if you just mash out the string, it's not going to catch them because whatever they're mashing is not going to come out. But if you delay it just enough for them to get into the startup animation of their attack, then you can smack them clean out of it and get a free combo that way. So it's less of a direct counter to push block and more of something that you're going to have to learn when they start adapting to your push block. This is why I personally think that Pushblock is one of the better mechanics because it adds a lot of depth on both offense and defense. Because when you're the attacking player, you have to play around it so you don't get punished. But then the defender also has to adapt. They have options and they have to pick one. So it becomes this cat and mouse chase where whoever can adapt better and read the opponent better will have a significant advantage. So I think that's very interesting. So overall, a very good mechanic. I highly implore you guys to get familiar with it if you're playing a game that does utilize it. And that's all I want to say. I don't want people to think that delaying buttons is somehow going to flat out beat Pushblock, because in most scenarios it's not. And this whole thing with the DP coming out, these are just some situations that might happen, and how to respond to them. Of course, it's all up to you and how quickly you can react and what choices you have. Again, go into the training room, figure this stuff out for yourself. I'm merely trying to let you know how many applications there could be, and that it is not just a defensive maneuver, and it's not a zero-sum winner takes all sort of deal. There's a lot that both players can do about it. So this is mainly to just sort of spark your imagination to sort of go and check out what exactly you can do with it. Anyways, with that in mind, I'm gonna finally actually put a pin in this video, and I hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you in the next one. Toodaloo.